This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs, somehow I got to get the goats in there. I don't know how to do that. Makes it rhyme. The dogs keep up a racket all night long. Q126, Stansbury. Arthur Stansbury, 1828, published by Gray and Little in Boston, Massachusetts. Hillard, Gray, Little, and Wilkins. Went to school with a boy named Hillard, and his mother and father ran a grocery store. Little grocery store right a block and a half from where I went to school. Yeah, I had to go to, well, I went to high school. I had to go to town, of course. We'd go over there, and she'd make us, for 35 cents, we could get 2 pieces of white bread, a piece of bologna, mayonnaise, and a brownie about yay big for a nickel. So it was 30 cents for the, no, 25 cents for the sandwich and 10 cents for the brownie. Mrs. Hillard. She made them herself, of course. Question 126 out of 333 questions in the Catechism on the Constitution. Can Congress erect courts? That is, make a law directing that a judge shall sit at a certain place at a certain time before whom causes or criminal cases shall be tried? And the answer is yes. It may appoint as many courts as it thinks fit. And who, by the way, he who has the power to create has the power to uncreate what he has created. And if Congress establishes a court under the Supreme Court of the United States, our Constitution says he can do that, or they can do that. If they do that, they can get rid of them with a stroke of a pen. Every federal court in the United States, Congress has authority to eliminate every federal court in the United States with a stroke of a pen, except the Supreme Court of the United States. You see, the Supreme Court of the United States is a direct creation of the Constitution of the United States. Congress has no authority to get rid of the Supreme Court. See, this Constitution of the United States creates directly, right from the Constitution. This instrument is what creates the Supreme Court of the United States, the Presidency of the United States, and the Congress of the United States. The three co-equal. That means none of them has authority ultimately over the other one. Weird. Who's running things? Well, that's the point. They're in constant, as you've watched all your life, constant tug of war between each other, trying to assert their jurisdiction. Now, there's some of you out there that are saying, well, see, we all know the Supreme Court of the United States is final. No, you're wrong. If you say that, it isn't. It never has been. I think I'd mentioned that there was a Quaker back in the year 1910 who was also a communist. The Quakers have had problems with that over the years. Not all Quakers are communists. I'm just saying because of the looseness of their doctrine, they get all sorts of riffraff. This guy was a professor back in my neck of the woods, a place called Wabash College. Wabash College at a place called Lafayette, Indiana, right near Lafayette. Lafayette is the home on the Wabash River, the home of Purdue University, still a major agricultural school in America, Purdue. The man that claimed to be the first man to walk on the moon, notice I said claims, was a graduate of Purdue University. He was Neil Armstrong. I met the man. Odd experience. I met him at a POW reunion. I wasn't a POW, but I had a family member that was, and so we went to the last reunion they had, their 50th, and I met Neil Armstrong. He was the guest speaker. I wasn't impressed, to say the least, and he's not here to defend himself, but it was pretty pathetic. Well, Purdue, Wabash College, which is an old Christian school like most all schools in America, all universities and colleges, All Christian, different sects. We're a Christian nation, that's why. Purdue was one of them, or Wabash College was. Wabash. He professor there, his name was Charles Beard, B-E-A-R-D. He wrote a book arguing that the Supreme Court of the United States has final authority in the government of the United States. Well, the guy was smart. Ever learning. Boy, he'd like these punky professors and dinky doctors all over these universities. These guys know a lot of stuff. But most of them are unable to come to a knowledge of truth. Isn't that something? Well, he was like that. He wrote a book. He'd go and argue that the Supreme Court of the United States is final. Well, he'd pretty highfalutin. People thought he was smart. The Supreme Court of the United States read that book. Whoa, hey, this says here we're in charge. So they've been acting like it ever since. When the Supreme Court of the United States tell D.J. Trump what to do, and D.J. Trump, having taken an oath to follow the Constitution, he did not take an oath to obey the Supreme Court of the United States. Then he's got to make a decision. Are they right or are they wrong? Remember, the Supreme Court of the United States has authority to declare what they believe, in their humble opinion, the law is in any given circumstance. How it is to be applied, that's their job. When Justice Marshall, way back there, back in the early 1800s, Chief Justice Marshall of the U.S. Supreme Court, cousin to Tom Jefferson. They were at odds, by the way, politically. When he said that the Supreme Court of the United States has authority to review, it has the power of review, appellate review of cases. People say, well, and that's what they're saying. The law schools are saying this. Well, the Supreme Court, he ruled that way. They have the power to declare what's constitutional and what isn't. Do they? The answer is yes, they do. That's their responsibility. But we call them, when the Supreme Court does that, what do we call them? Do we call them decrees, orders, legislation? Now, what do we call them in our common law tradition? Just the opinion of the court. The opinion. They're there to render their opinions, and they have no power to enforce them. However, in our common law tradition, all of the courts in the judicial branch of government are bound by unwritten custom, and it's a good custom, unwritten, called stare decisis. That's Latin for let the decision stand, and all the courts are bound to fall within the parameters of what the Supreme Court says. That's true. But that's one branch of government. That's the judicial branch. The executive branch, the governor of your state or the president of the United States, will fall within those parameters if they believe it's constitutional. But if they believe it is not constitutional, that means unlawful, they won't. And they don't. And they always pick and choose which opinions of the Supreme Court they will follow and which ones they won't. Is our Supreme Court important? Yes. As a matter of fact, in our common law tradition, our courts, the judicial branch is the first branch of government. The first branch by nature that men form when they don't have a government. And America is more than you could count examples because we hacked and trampled our way across the wilderness without government. And what did we do? In a million different places on the wilderness of this continent. First thing we did was, oh, we got a problem? Hey, you don't have a problem until you have a problem. Oh, now we got a problem? We need some government here. Well, what did they do first? Well, they had a problem. They brought the people causing the problem up, and they set them down on a log someplace, and 12 of them. They said, now we got a problem here, and here's this fella here and this fella here, and they're fighting. Or this fella here raped this girl. This fella here stole this hog. And then let them tell their story and ask the jury what to do. They form courts first. Is that any surprise? No legislature. Well, then after you get a judgment of the court, then what do? Well, we got to enforce the judgment. Well, we're going to have to pick somebody out to make sure that gets done, or a handful of men to make sure that the judgment is carried out. Hanging, pulling off your ears, whipping, or just transferring of the hog back to the man that stole it, or 2 hogs because he stole it, and make it happen. Now you got the executive branch, you see. And the Pilgrims, when they came to America, and the Puritans, they said, well, now we got courts, we got the common law, we got juries, we're doing that. And now we got the sheriff to enforce the orders of the court when they're lawful. The sheriff thinks they are. What about a legislature? Well, we don't need a legislature right now. Why not? Well, we got this book. And it's got legislation in it. They have these 10 commandments here say, do not covet, lie, steal, commit adultery, or murder your neighbor. Why do we need something else? Plus, we got all these examples of how to apply it. And then we got, in the New Testament, we got the revelation of Jesus Christ's life and his giving of the Spirit. And now we have the power to pull this off consistently. Well, shucks, we're set up. And they were. We've been set up ever since in our common law tradition. Why do we have a legislature then? Well, we decided we need a legislature for 2 reasons, and 2 reasons only, in your state or in Congress. There is no other reason for the U.S. Congress but these 2 things. Number 1, the United States Congress, which is part of our common law tradition to have this body of gray-bearded men, that's anciently what they called them, the Witan, that's related to the word white, like winter, snow, it's related to the word white, and it means white-bearded, Witan Gamat, that was their Congress. Before 1066, they called it the Witan Gamat. The Gamat means the Gamot, that means the meeting, Gamot, of the white-bearded men. So they said we got to have them. Why? Because in our common law tradition, we don't want the sheriff or the governor or the president, the executive branch, declaring war or deciding who we're going to go try to kill or who we might get killed by. No, we want some older men to get their heads together and make a declaration of war. That's our common law tradition. So we ask Congress, who has power to declare war under our Constitution of the United States? The Congress of the United States, nobody else. The president does not have a power to declare war. Well, he tries to get around it. Of course, we've been fighting wars since World War II. Thousands of people have died. Is that constitutional? Constitutional? No, the answer is no, it's not. It's not within the president's power, the governor of your state, to wage war on his own decision. Wouldn't that stop a lot of foolishness right there? No, this is simple, friends. It's not like you got to be a lawyer to understand what it says. Well, why is it they don't want to declare war when they go fight like that? Well, if you declare war, you've got to declare who your enemy is. These people, the Japs in World War II, these people are our enemies, so we can go kill them. The Germans are our enemies. What was it? The Italians and the Axis powers. It was kind of funny. You read about the Italians in World War II. We brought them over here, and we'd capture them. We'd bring them over to the States. And most of the Italians, you read about them when they're in prison camp here. They just get together and find out who is the highest ranking officer among the bunch and say, look, go talk to these guys, these Americans. Tell them we're not interested in causing any trouble. We just want to set the war out. And when this is over, we'll probably just stay here anyway. We like it. Isn't that something? And they did a lot of, or they went home and found a way to get back. Same thing with the Germans. A lot of them just tried to find a way to get back. How come? Well, they gained more weight in prison camp in America than they ever did at home in the private sector. The food was so good. No, we took care of them. Boy, did we take care of them. And that served us well. Taking care of your enemy in those situations will serve you very well. The Bible says that. If your enemy's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. Do not abuse your enemy. But here's the point I'm getting at. Why hasn't Congress declared war? They don't want to do that. Why? Because once you declare war, you identify clearly your enemy. And once you identify your enemy, then treason, real prosecution for treason, becomes possible. You see, right now, patriots are screaming, oh, he's committed treason, he did this, he did that. No, he hasn't. I don't care how bad it gets. Until somebody declares war and says, this is your enemy, we don't have an enemy. That's a legal question, friends. Is China our enemy? Well, they may be against us, and we may be at private war with them, but nobody declared them our enemy. Therefore, see, treason is defined as aid and comfort to the enemy. Our Constitution of the United States says that. Well, who gets to decide who the enemy is? I've seen times we've gone to war with people like, let me give you an example. Cassius Clay. I refuse to call him Muhammad Ali. His name's Cassius Clay. He's from Louisville, Kentucky. All this silly, weird beard Arab talk, forget it. It's Cassius Clay. Start saying it. Or do you have respect for worship of demons? Well, then call him Cassius Clay. That's the name his mother gave him. I respect his mother and his father. By the way, Cassius Clay, isn't this amazing? There's good evidence of it, of course. There are not that many Clays in America, but one of the most famous of the Clay family in America was Henry. He was the youngest Speaker of the House of Representatives we'd had up to that time, and he was the leader of the Whig Party from Lexington, Kentucky. It's no accident that Cassius Clay is from Kentucky. And, of course, people that were enslaved, their last name was the name of the family that they worked for. Cassius Clay, Henry Clay, the Blue Bloods of Lexington, Kentucky. There's a good chance, although I've never heard anybody, but I've always thought it had to be true. If your last name is the same as another fella, you're closer related than you think. And obviously, Cassius Clay, part white. You just look at him and tell that. Of course, most people that were enslaved in America, their families are part white. They've been here long enough. They certainly don't look like Africans. Well, that's a whole different deal. Well, 126. Yeah, see, the Supreme Court, Congress, or the Constitution of the United States creates the Supreme Court of the United States, and then the Constitution of the United States gives power to the Congress of the United States to establish other courts by legislation. And they do. They have. We got tons of federal courts. At least one in every state, and probably 3, 4, or 5 to cover all the people. And those federal courts only have jurisdiction over matters. Watch this. This is fundamental to who we are as Americans. Don't miss this. Those federal courts that are the Supreme Court, that our Constitution has established directly, and the other courts that Congress has established under the Supreme Court, the only jurisdiction those courts have is of matters arising under the Constitution of the United States. If the Constitution of the United States has not given jurisdiction to the federal courts for a particular matter, you can't get into federal court. And that jurisdiction of federal courts is very limited to whatever the Constitution of the United States mentions. If the question before the court is not a question that about the Constitution, you can't get into federal court. You got to take it to a state court. State courts can hear anything. The jurisdiction of state courts in America is arguably without limit. You can bring constitutional questions before your state courts. See, the truth is, if we didn't have federal courts, wouldn't make that much difference in my mind if we got state courts. And state courts have jurisdiction to hear any question, constitutional questions, non-constitutional questions, any dispute that arises. And if there isn't a remedy, the court in our common law tradition has a duty to fashion a remedy for the problem before the court. 127. Can Congress punish piracy? You know what piracy is? That's felony. That's a kind of a felony committed on the high seas. The seas are dangerous because it's hard to keep all the criminals. It's so big, you see, it's hard to find them. Piracy is a problem now. Remember the pirates in Somalia and of course, they tried to commandeer merchant ships, American merchant ships, boarded them with arms, tried to take over the ship and steal it, and take it home with the cargo. When I was a very young military man, there was the incident of piracy during the administration of Gerald Ford. Remember, Nixon quit, resigned. Ford was vice president. Only one thing happened during his short presidency. He ran against Jimmy Carter, but lost. But during his short presidency, the Cambodians, in an act of piracy, captured an American merchant ship called the USS Mayaguez. It's the only thing that happened of any note, really, during Ford's administration. So he looked for some Marines to send to go get it. He found a whole bunch of them just out of boot camp. Didn't know beans from sour apple butter. Didn't know squat from straight up. Never been in combat. Didn't know sick 'em from come here. That's all he had, but he had lots of them. And had two E5s that's E5, that's low-ranking sergeant. Why he sent this, surely he'd have had Marines someplace. I suppose he thought he wanted to use the ones that were overseas. They were there. They were green. He had some E5s he put with him. That Vietnam was that was the last battle, by the way, of the Vietnam War, was the Mayaguez. The last battle. It occurred on a little island where they had taken the ship. They had some E5 Marines that had fresh out of combat to go with these boys. We scared the Cambodians. We blew up all their military bases. We told them, if you don't give that ship back with its crew, this is what Ford sent the message, if you don't give that ship back with its crew within so many minutes or hours, a very short period of time, we are going to dismantle here in Cambodia now, the entire country of Cambodia. We're going to dismantle your entire military infrastructure. And that doesn't mean we're going to use screwdrivers and wrenches. It was a bad deal. And it sent 2 Alpha strikes from the carriers, USS Coral Sea and USS Midway, old World War II boats, sister ships, about 140, 150 warplanes, and just bombed their military installations into oblivion. Why? Because the Constitution of the United States gives the President of the United States power to punish piracy committed at sea. Let's be more particular. What is piracy committed at sea? It is robbery, not stealing. No, that's a little different. Stealing is something that's done by stealth. Deceptive practices under the table. Robbery? That's by force or threat of force or both. That's robbery. Your money or your life, cock the pistol. That's robbery. Rape of a woman is a species of robbery. Why? Because by force or threat of force, you're taking something that she doesn't want to give to you. That's robbery. Her own possession. Robbery. Well, piracy is robbery. Kidnapping is robbery by force or threat of force against a person's will. You threaten to shoot him, or you shoot him, or force or threat of force. Kidnapping. You see, England outlawed the slave trade. Well, by doing so, they outlawed robbery. They did not outlaw slavery in the 1840s or whenever it was under the man in Parliament. His name was Wilberforce. He didn't outlaw slavery. The Parliament passed legislation. The executive branch, the king, signed it. Therefore, robbery, force or threat of force, but if it's force or threat of force on the high seas, that's called piracy. Yes, the government of the United States and all other crimes committed on the seas, on the oceans, it can punish offenses against the laws of nations. Now, this gets kind of mushy. What's the law of nations? Well, today we call it pretty much international law. What is international law? International law, back when the Constitution of the United States, when the militiamen of America ratified it, international law was the law that the European powers agreed to. And some, the Oriental powers, but they weren't part of the community of nations. Europe was the big gorilla in the room, and they governed the high seas. Remember, at that time, when we became a country, England was called the mistress of the seas. The mistress of the seas. It was as though England and the sea had this marriage relationship. They were very close. Hey, that old song I remember. There's a port on a western bay that serves 100 ships a day, and lonely sailors pass the time away and talk about their homes. There's a girl in this harbor town, makes her money laying whiskey down. The sailors say, "Brandy, fetch another round." She serves them whiskey and wine. And in that song, it's about a girl that fell in love with a sailor, but the sailor, he was nice to her, but he didn't lie to her. He said, "My life, my love, and my lady is the sea." He even said to her, "Brandy, your eyes could steal a sailor from the sea." Beautiful. Come in. Somebody's knocking. No, I ain't gonna let him in. He's trouble.
Is that a goat?
Yeah, I thought it was somebody serious, but no, I can't do it right now. Well, anyway, England. Let's do this, Miss Francine. Play a song, and I'll see what is going on out there.
Yeah, how about if I play a song and you take care of that?
All right.
So,
That's good.
we're going to have Grandma entertain us
Okay.
for a little bit. Here we go. I'm only human. I'm just a woman. Help me to believe in all that I am and all I can be. way that I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Do you remember when you walked among men? Well, Jesus, you know, if you're looking below, it's worse now than then. Cheating and stealing, violence and crime. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time.
Thank you, Miss Francine.
You're welcome, and your camera is off.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, let's do that. Bingo. All right, and here we go. Question. Now, the Constitution of the United States, of course, is a brief of common law government. I repeat these things because we have new listeners. Some of you maybe get tired of hearing it, but on the other hand, the more I say it, the more it will drive it home to like a nail driven into your mind, and it won't be dislodged. The Constitution of the United States is a brief of common law government. So when we're talking about the laws of nature, or common law, and the laws of nature is God, the Bible, that's what we do here. Let's do one more question, and then we'll move on to the laws of nature is God, the book of Jude. What do you mean by the law of nations? We call it today international law. I mean those rules which are agreed upon among all nations, except those who are savages. Savages. What's a savage? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. To regulate their conduct toward each other. And all of the crimes committed. Let's see. No. International law are rules which are agreed upon among all nations except the savages, to regulate their conduct toward each other. Now, stop to consider, friends. People talk about how we've mistreated the red man, the tribal people in America. Have we? Well, sure. But do we talk about how they've mistreated us? No, not much. We never talk about how other people have mistreated the white folk in America. No, we're the villains, of course, according to the evil empire. I've talked to plenty of tribal members in my life, my friends, who have told me that they are thankful. Got to put my hat up so you can't see what's behind that mirror. There. that they are thankful that Christianity came to America. Oh yeah. I just talked to a fellow yesterday that back in the 70s, he won the big snowmobile race they have up in Alaska, something like, I forget how far it is. It goes clear to Nome. It's like the dog sled race. And they go in partnership. At that time, they went in teams of four snowmobiles together because it's dangerous. You don't want to be out there by yourself. Well, he's a lily white fella from, where was he from? Northern Susanville, California. That's where he grew up, Susanville. And the other three fellas he had with him were tribal Indians from Montana. And they won. They won the race. Now, we here in America get along great with the tribes. Oh, there are exceptions, but the truth is, they focus on the ones that are weird that want to fight. Like my friend told me, there's a lesbian tribal lawyer, trying to take the water rights of all the people in Montana. This is ongoing. All that water belongs to us. Stuff like that. Oh, white folk. Andy Jackson, President of the United States. He's villainized because he's the one that removed the 5 civilized tribes from the east to Oklahoma. Against, by the way, the opinion of the Supreme Court of the United States delivered. It said he had no authority to do that. Well, he did. Why did he do it? Well, do people stop to say that Andy Jackson adopted as his own sons Choctaw, Chickasha, whatever they were down there in Alabama? He adopted orphan boys, his wife and him. Does anybody mention that? Does anybody mention that he could see, and he said this, and when he did it, that the tribes and their culture will be destroyed if we don't move them? The onslaught of the white people is so great, their culture will be destroyed. They're civilized in this sense. They've reduced their tongue to a writing. They have their own newspaper. They have their own constitution. We've always, watch this, we've always in America treated the tribes of America, for all the things that went wrong, we treated the tribes of America according to the laws of nature. What does that mean? That means I know there was bloodshed, but we found agreement and said, what can we agree upon? And upon the basis of that agreement, we got along. What does the Bible say? Easy. It says, the prophet says, how can two walk together if they be not agreed? They can't. They'll try to kill each other eventually. What do the law professors say? And other people like theologians, they say, if two men or two nations cannot agree upon the same external standard to govern their relationship, they eventually will go to war if they can't get far enough apart. That's why you have wars. Why did we go to war with Japan? We could not agree on a common external standard, a law to govern our relationship. Why do people go to court in America and try cases before the jury? Because they cannot agree upon what the law means that governs their problem. So we go to court. We have battle by trial before the jury. But it can get ugly, like Doug MacArthur, old Dugout Doug, a general officer of the forces in the Pacific. He stood on the deck of the U.S. Mighty Mo. I've been on old Mighty Mo. She's mothballed. I don't know where she is now. She was mothballed in Bremerton, Washington 50 years ago. That's when I went aboard. He stood on the deck of Mighty Mo. The big shots from the J-Pan came over, and he had a microphone, and I don't remember everything he said, but he said this. I remember this. He said the differences between our two nations have been decided on fields of battle. It's over. We couldn't agree to talk about it. We ended up going to blows, and for whatever reason, we have won. And those questions are now decided, and we have agreement. Took a lot of dead men, but we got agreement. There was no other way. They were going to kill us. They came after us, and they weren't going to stop. Germany declared war before we did. Dumbest thing they ever did. Well, actually, it wasn't Germany. It was Hitler. He had the power to declare war, to decide who the enemies of his nation were. That's stupid, too. You don't give a man that kind of power. He'll do stupid things. Hitler may have been very smart, but that was stupid. And the people in Germany and all over Europe, all over the world said, this guy's stupid. When it happened, I have talked to people, they're gone now, that lived in Germany, that told me the whole country thought, is he mad when he declared war on the United States? That's why I said Congress, according to our Constitution, they're the only ones that have the power to declare who our enemy is. That means war. Remember, there's only two states between nations and between people. You're either at war with them, they're your enemy, or they are your friend. There isn't anything else. Now, as to men, if you can get far enough away from a guy you don't get along with and you can't agree upon a common external standard to govern your relationship, well, you get away from him if the world is wide enough. A lot of times that's not possible. That's why Christian folk, if they can go and they can say, well, look, we believe what this book says, all the people here in this little congregation, we believe what this book says, and we don't know everything it says. We're always working on it, but whatever it says, yeah, that's what we believe, and that's what we agree on. So they get together and they have a commonality, you see. And if they have a problem among themselves, the Bible tells us how to solve those problems. It's a beautiful book. But two men and two nations cannot walk together if they agree. Why is it that the English-speaking world, England, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, have always been our allies? Because we have a very deep-seated commonness. What is it? We have a common, the same external standard, have always had it, whereby we govern our relationship with each other. Therefore, we can get along. We get along with Canada. Have you noticed? We get along with Canada more than we get along with Mexico. And Mexico is foreign to us. Why? Because their skin's a different color than a lot of us? No. They're under the code of Justinian, the civil law of Rome, the Babylonian law, the canon civil laws of the Western Church. They like imperial government. They're used to it. Canada, no, they're like us. See, we're a common law country. They're a common law country. We have a lot in common. The laws of nature, the laws of nature's God, and all the Bible, they're Christian. Officially Christian. By decree of government. Here's the great difference. We're going over this in our Christian nationalism class. I know some of you that are in Canada are saying, no, we aren't, Brent. We're not Christian by government decree. Well, your relationship to the old country has not been severed. I know you have your own independence, but your relationship has not been severed. The Crown of England has authority. And by the way, they own millions of acres of Canada. The Crown does. We have severed our relationship with the Crown of England. The bands, our Declaration of 76 says, the bands, that means that what holds us together between us, has been severed because, and then we said, we will treat England like all other nations. We will be friends with them in times of peace and enemies in times of war. But you can't be both, and you can't be between, my friend. Either another nation or another man is your friend or he is your enemy. If he's your enemy, if the world's wide enough, get away from him. The Bible says just leave him alone. Don't be committing any crimes. But as to nations, it's a little bit different. But still, the principle applies. What's a savage? We'll end with this. A savage, that's a Latin word. It means wooden. It means woods. It means forest. What's a savage then? A savage The original meaning of the word is a man or a woman or a people, a tribe that lives in the woods. It's just like they used to say, the Romans called the Britons, the people who live in Britain, they called them heathens. Why did they call them heathens? Because they lived out in the hills and away from the cities where the heather flowers grow. Heathen and the word heather, same word. They call them heathens. They're not cityfied, they're countryfied. That's what they're saying. That's what Rome said about the heathens. But what they say about the Saxons, they said they're barbarians. Why? Because they're not cityfied. So they're barbarians. They don't understand what is polite. Polite? Yeah, that means what you learn how to get along with people in the polis. Polis, that's the Greek word for city. You're not cityfied, you're countryfied, therefore you're not part of the club. You're not as sophisticated. There's another word. Sophisticate? Well, all these things create a rift. We have that rift in the United States now. It's the rift that occurs all over the world, in every century. It never goes away. The uncommonness between that which is cityfied and that which is countryfied. That's what we have it now. The political candidates for president, they'll divide, when they run for president, it'll divide the country, the counties of America, over 3,000 counties, 80% of them will go for one candidate, and 20% of the counties will go for another. Why? Well, it's the rural areas versus the metropolitan, the city areas, the metro, the mother city. Metro means mother. Metropolitan, polis, city. Metropolitan, the mother city. It's a religion, friends. It creates a different mindset. You learn to give up your time and your attention, what you want for the sake of other people, because there's no way you can live together and not stop at a stoplight, and even when nobody's coming, and just sit there and waste your time. That's city life. But that's just one small example. It goes to everything. The law of the city begins to prevail. And once the law of the city is extended over a territory, which means the land area around the city over which the city extends its terror, well, once that happens, you're really going down the tubes, and that's what's happening in America. The cities are extending their policy. We don't have roads out here in the country anymore. No, the powers that be came along and called them streets. Now they're streets officially. Isn't that something? Don't think that isn't by design and very important. Language is the way you change things. No more gravel roads, just streets out in the country. Well, our object under the covenant of God is to not be cityfied. That's our object.